Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely crucial. We are embarking on what I like to call an inside-out hero's journey, and the ultimate destination, a truly fulfilling life. So, what is the secret to a successful, joyful life? I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? Well, it turns out solving this giant puzzle isn't just about finding one magic trick. It actually requires a deliberate journey. We have to master our own minds first, and then okay, let's dive into this. We've got a fantastic roadmap for today. First, we'll look inside your emotional brain. Next, we'll explore the emotional bank account. Then, we'll move into the Dale Carnegie way. And finally, we'll arrive at discovering your Ikigai. Part 1. Inside your emotional brain. Conquering the mind. You see, any epic hero's journey has to start from within. Before we can go out and conquer the world, we literally have to conquer our own internal landscape. And it all begins with logic. Having a solid foundation in logic acts as our armor, really. It stops us from being duped by bad info or just wild, immediate impulses. It gives us that critical space to just pause, evaluate our choices, and actually think rather than just blindly reacting. And managing those internal reactions, well, that's been a human struggle for a very, very long time. Look at this quote from Aristotle, written way back around 325 BC. Anyone can get angry, that is easy, but to do this to the right person, to the right extent, at the right time, with the right motive, and in the right way, that is not for everyone, nor is it easy. I mean, he hit the nail on the head, didn't he? That perfectly sets up exactly what we now call emotional intelligence. Now, what's really interesting about this is that this struggle has an actual physical location. Deep within the brain, our limbic system is constantly processing raw, unfiltered emotions. Before logic can even enter the chat, our limbic system is already firing off signals based on whatever it is we're experiencing. So have you ever felt completely hijacked by a sudden surge of anger? Like, say, someone cuts you off in traffic and you suddenly want to go to war? Psychologist Dale Goleman calls this emotional hijacking. It's a state where our emotions just completely override our logical thought, leading to a massive knee-jerk reaction. And you know how it goes. You realize 10 minutes later that your response was totally out of proportion. To prevent that hijacking, we use emotional intelligence, which breaks down beautifully into this 4-part matrix. First, we have personal competence. That's how we handle ourselves. This includes self-awareness, which is accurately perceiving our own emotions, and self-management, directing our behavior in a positive way. Then we move over to social competence, which is how we handle others. That's social awareness, picking up on other people's emotions, and finally, relationship management. When we get triggered, we basically face 2 paths. We can fall victim to the emotional hijack, acting without thinking, which almost always ends badly, or we can apply the practical antidote: stop, challenge, and choose. You just stop and breathe. You challenge your assumptions, asking yourself, hey, is there more to this situation? And then you wisely choose a response that won't wreck your relationships. And if you're sitting there thinking this is all just soft psychology, consider this number: $29,000. Studies show that people with high emotional intelligence make, on average, $29,000 more a year than those with lower scores. It is actually the single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace. So mastering these internal skills, it has massive real-world value. Chapter 2, the emotional bank account, navigating your environment. Okay, so we're transitioning now. We've looked at how we manage ourselves internally. Now we need to look outward. To really understand our relationships, Dr. Stephen Covey coined this brilliant metaphor, the emotional bank account. Think of it exactly like a real financial ledger, but it represents the trust in a relationship. Every single interaction we have either builds that trust up or depletes it. Just like puzzle pieces fitting together perfectly, trust is what connects 2 individuals. You make deposits into someone's account through positive behaviors. Things like actually listening, showing appreciation, or keeping your promises. These deposits secure the connection and make the relationship highly resilient over time. So, the crucial point here is that we must consciously manage these emotional ledgers. Deposits are those positive behaviors that constantly build trust. Withdrawals, on the flip side, are negative behaviors like breaking promises or showing contempt that heavily diminish trust. And just like a real bank, if you make too many withdrawals, you'll eventually bankrupt the relationship entirely. Chapter 3, the Dale Carnegie way, building alliances. Long before we had modern corporate terms for relationship management, there were pioneers figuring the whole shebang out. Dale Carnegie was one of the absolute masters, and his life is a total testament to these principles. He wasn't born with a silver spoon, you know? In 1888, he was a Missouri farm boy, literally waking up at 3 a.m. to feed pigs. But by 1912, he debuted a public speaking class at a New York YMCA. And by 1936, he published How to Win Friends and Influence People, a book that has sold tens of millions of copies. He lived the exact transformation he taught. Actually, there's a fascinating anecdote from his early days that just shows his genius. At that 1912 YMCA session, he actually ran out of teaching material. Just ran dry. Improvising on the spot, he suggested his students speak about something that made them angry. And guess what? He discovered that tapping into that raw emotion completely dissolved their fear of public speaking. He brilliantly utilized a core emotion to just override their social anxiety. From those early observations, he developed his core philosophy, which is beautifully summarized right here. It is possible to change other people's behavior by changing one's behavior towards them. I mean, think about the power of that statement. It is the ultimate form of relationship management. You don't force other people to change. You just adjust your own inputs, your deposits into their emotional bank accounts, and the environment around you naturally shifts. Chapter 4. Discovering your Ikigai, the ultimate quest. Let's move on and see how all this folds together. We've mastered our minds and we've learned how to ally with others. But what is our ultimate quest? Consider this profound quote from psychiatrist Viktor Frankl. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. True joy doesn't come from sitting on a beach doing absolutely nothing. It really comes from passionately pursuing something deeply meaningful. The Japanese actually have a beautiful word for this exact concept, Ikigai. It refers to a passion that gives value and joy to life. The modern formula for finding your Ikigai involves looking for the intersection of these 4 elements: what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. And hey, you don't need to change the whole entire world. Even aiming for a modest intersection of these elements, like cooking well for your friends and seeing their smiles, can deeply, deeply enrich your life. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact of living with purpose. Take a look at Ogimi Village in Okinawa. It's famously known as a village of longevity. Over there, you'll find people like a 101-year-old textile artisan still making traditional fabric, and a 91-year-old farmer still actively growing crops. They have an explicit Ikigai, and they stay busily engaged in it every single day, surrounded by incredibly strong social networks. And the data backs this up wonderfully. To put it into perspective, a national survey in Japan found that 47.5%, that is nearly half, of people aged 70 and older remain highly active by working, enjoying hobbies, or joining community activities. Furthermore, studies show that seniors who are deeply engaged in their Ikigai, rather than just working for financial reasons, have a drastically lower risk of functional decline as they age. Which leaves us right here, at the end of our journey together. You've seen the blueprint to master your logical mind. You've learned how to build trust and navigate complex relationships. You are fully equipped for the road ahead. The only thing left to do is look inward and ask yourself the most important question of all. What is your Ikigai? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.